the disciples' perspective changed. They suddenly had their eyes opened to see what had been there all along. The glory of God in human form stood among them. Just like the word Jesus suddenly appeared. Perhaps they suddenly saw Jesus as he truly was. Perhaps Jesus knew that Peter, James and John were now ready to see his glory. After all, Peter had just made the confession that Jesus was the Messiah, and Jesus had just said to Peter, James and John that they would see the kingdom of God. So maybe Jesus was preparing them for this moment, and he now knew that they were ready to have their eyes opened, to see his glory that had been there all along, just hidden from their eyes. And maybe God opens our eyes little by little to his glory too, when we're ready to see more of him. So my question to you today is, are you ready to have your spiritual eyes opened? Are you ready to see the glory of God? But how can we see God's glory? Where can we go to see him? Can we expect to have a vision of Jesus in dazzling white, like these three disciples had? Or are there other ways in which Christ might reveal his glory to us? In the passage, the first thing we notice is the disciples and Jesus went up a mountain to pray. For Jesus, prayer is about experiencing the Father's love and grace intimately and directly. And so we are similarly called to seek God directly, to seek his face in prayer, to seek an encounter with the living God. They also went to be among God's creation. And sometimes we too may get a glimpse of God's glory, of Christ's glory, within his creation. There may be times when you've taken a walk through a forest, or around a lake, or through the countryside, and as you quieten and still yourself and enter into the present moment, you become aware of God's sacred presence all around you. In the trees, the flowers, the sky, the animals and the birds. It's like the creation itself becomes transfigured as we see afresh God's glory shimmering through everything God has made. Our eyes opened to the glory of Christ all around us. There's a verse of the Psalms which says, "The earth will be full of the glory of the Lord as the waters cover the sea." But I'm told it could just as easily be translated as, "The earth is full of the glory of the Lord as the waters cover the sea." In other words, maybe God's glory, Christ's glory, is already here within creation. Maybe it's us who need to wake up to his presence all around us in the present moment, to become aware of God's dwelling in all that God has made. And the more we experience God's glory in creation, then surely the more reluctant we'll be to harm the creation, to destroy it or to pollute it. But rather to care and treasure it, knowing that this is truly the place where God's glory dwells, the place where Christ's transfigured glory can be seen. So God's glory can certainly be seen within creation, but where else can we go to see God's glory? Where else can we see the glory of Christ? It's interesting that in the passage immediately after the transfiguration, the three disciples and Jesus go straight from the mountaintop to greet a large crowd of people below. Where is the glory of God shining in their midst now? They see a boy in need, unable to hear or speak. Surely God's glory cannot be here, among the needy and the broken. And yet Jesus sees this boy. He really sees him. Where everyone else sees a boy apparently cursed by God because of his illness, Jesus sees him as a child of God, a child of Abraham. And he reaches out and he heals the boy, revealing God's glory shining through the life of this innocent child. Are we prepared to see the glory of God in other people? Are we prepared for Christ to open our eyes to behold his presence and his glory within those around us? Christ often meets us through the other. But so often there are people in life that we easily dismiss. Can we see Christ's glory shining through people in the church community who hold very different views to us? Can we see Christ within our work colleagues, those family members we find difficult? Or shining through the homeless guy in the U-Bahn selling newspapers and asking for money? If we would allow Christ to open our eyes, then maybe we might behold the light of Christ transfigured and shining through the lives of all those around us. The disciples were told on the mountain to listen to Jesus. And so we are called to listen to him, the one who always calls us out onto the road less travelled, who calls us to reach out to others in costly acts of service and self-sacrifice, knowing that we're serving Christ himself by serving others. So where else can we go to behold God's glory? Where else can we go to see the light of Christ shining today? Well, we don't need to go far. We can behold Christ's glory in our midst as we celebrate Holy Communion together. Here, as we take the bread and the wine, we catch a glimpse of Christ transfigured in our midst. His presence is as real this morning as it was in the upper room when he first appeared to his disciples. Are we ready to see Christ alive and present here as we receive Holy Communion? To encounter the resurrected Christ, the one whose glory fills the earth, but who meets us through these ordinary gifts of bread and wine? And finally, I believe there is one last place to look where we might catch a glimpse of the glory of Christ. And this is probably the hardest place to find him, and that is to catch a glimpse of Christ's glory shining within our own lives. I don't know about you, but I find it so hard to see something of Christ in myself. I can easily see my shortcomings, my failures, my compromises and my sins. However, God has declared that we are his children, sons and daughters of the living God, that we are all forgiven in him, that his glory is within each of us through his Spirit. It might be hard to see this sometimes, but he's there in our lives, whether we recognise him or not, whether our eyes are open or not. There's something of Christ's love, Christ's joy, Christ's presence within all of us. Something of the light of the glory of Jesus Christ within us, as the Bible tells us. So what if, instead of just seeing our shortcomings, we also saw God at work within our lives, transforming us, transfiguring us into the people we were always meant to be in Christ? If we truly saw ourselves as God sees us, as beloved sons and daughters, then I'm sure we would be less likely to be so hard on ourselves. I'm sure we'd value, love, and embrace ourselves more easily, even as Christ values, loves, and embraces us. And we'd consequently be free from both self-righteousness and self-pity, as we humbly accept our belovedness in Christ, that in him all is forgiven and all is redeemed. So are you ready to see more of God's glory today, more of Christ's glory? Then seek him today in prayer and ask that Christ opens your eyes to his glory among us. May your eyes be open to see the Spirit at work in your own life, for you are the beloved of God, and the light of Christ's glory lives in you. May we be open to encountering him today in the bread and wine, as the transfigured Christ reaches out to us through these ordinary gifts of creation. May our eyes be open today to see Christ's glory shining and transfigured in the lives of others, especially those we find difficult, or those on the margins who no one else notices. And today may we also be open to encountering him in the solitary place, the place of prayer and stillness, to behold the glory of Christ in everything God has created. And may we then love all that God has created, treasuring the earth as we would treasure